So let's go ahead and dive in. So welcome everybody to math quizzes for Equatio and Google Forms. Full disclosure, I still don't know how to pronounce Equatio or if it's Equatio. I've seen people pronounce it both ways. I'm going to be bouncing back and forth with it, honestly. So we're talking about the same thing. So of course, welcome to this session, everybody. You can get a copy of the slideshow for today at the short link you see at the top of my screen here, bit.ly/NEO lowercase Jan21. So again, I'll put the link for that in the chat for us that are here live with us today. So I just put the link to the slideshow in the chat. And of course, if you're watching the recording, you can get that through the short link at the top of the screen. I'll also put the sign-in page in the chat as well. All right, if you are here live with us, please do go ahead and sign in. That's how I know, that's how I keep track of attendance. If you're watching this as a recording, obviously you don't have to worry about that. But I'll give you guys a second to get all signed in, and then we'll get started. So again, for the sign-in page and for the slideshow, I put both those links in the chat for you. Give you guys a few seconds to get all signed in, and then we will get rolling. Of course, if you have any questions as we're going throughout our little session today, feel free to type in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and you can ask a question. All right, so let's go ahead and get started here. So welcome everybody, my name is Dan. I'm a technology integration specialist at NeoNet. Here's my email on the second slide here, dneeson@neonet.org. That's probably the best way to get a hold of me. So if you have any questions, always feel free to shoot me an email. If you're just kind of digesting all this stuff we talk about today and then you kind of run into a question you didn't think of at the time, feel free to shoot me an email. And let's go ahead and look at our to-do list for today. So we'll start out by looking at how to get Equatio, get the premium version for free, which is awesome. So we'll look at how to do that. Then we'll take a pretty good dive into Equatio in action. So using it particularly in Google Forms. As you'll see, we'll kind of talk about it a little bit today. You can use it in other places as well. And then we'll take a kind of a brief glance at the student's perspective, and that will wrap up our hour here. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about getting Equatio for free. So of course, if you're not really familiar with Equatio yet, and you just kind of saw, hey, math quizzes in a digital way, that sounds interesting. This tool, Equatio, it's software that allows you to create mathematical equations, formulas, and more directly on your computer. You can simply type, handwrite, which is something that kind of interesting, and dictate any expression, and Equatio will convert it to an accurate digital math, which can be added to Microsoft Word doc and pretty much any G Suite thing that you want. Teachers can get the premium version of Equatio for free by completing this form. So here on slide number 4 is a link for that form. I'll also put it in the chat for us here. But what I'll actually do is I'll just kind of pause here and let you guys just fill out this form. It takes 2 minutes. There's just a quick little form to fill out. I'll put the link in the chat for us again here. And so take a moment here, and again, the link is on slide number 4 if you pull up the slideshow for yourself, or I just put the link in the chat. So take a moment here. I'll give you guys 2 minutes to go ahead and fill this out. When I filled this one out for myself, even though I don't technically work directly for a school, I work for NeoNet, which is an ITC, so it's still kind of a funky thing, but I still got the free account. So you can so I still get all those free features. I can't remember how long it took. It says it may take up to 24 hours for your subscription to be activated. I think that's pretty much what it took for mine. It took about a day to get it. Even so, if you're brand new to Equatio, you get a month free of premium anyway. So let's go ahead and just take 2 minutes here. I'll pause the recording so the recording just isn't dead.
All right, cool. All right, so again, this is just obviously a really great tool. Obviously, anytime you can get something, the premium version of something for free, that's great. So again, that form can be completed. And again, if you're brand new to Equatio, Equatio, whatever, you get a free month of the premium anyway. But if they verify you for the teacher version, then you keep the premium version. I think you get it for, I want to say 2 years or something like that. So you'll have it for a while. All right, so after completing the form, then you can install the browser extension. So here's the link for it on slide number 5. Again, I'll put the link for this in the chat as well. And again, that link is also on slide number 5 for you. And again, you just install it like any other extension. And just make sure you're using the same login that you did for same information, the same email that you did for the that little form from a moment ago. Now, if you prefer Microsoft Word, you can also install the add-on for that on this link here, also on slide number 5. So if you prefer Microsoft Word, that link is here on slide number 5 for you. And so you can download that. This loads for me. There we go. And so then you can get that add-in for Microsoft Word. So if you usually just do stuff in Word, if you want to make quizzes that way or just make your regular assignments that way, of course, you can pull it in from there as well. All right. So both those things are there for you. And again, as long as it feeds from the same account, the one that you did for the form, you'll be good to go. You'll have all the premium features. All right. Did I lose anybody? Any questions so far? Doing good so far? Cool. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at Equatio in action. So first thing is opening Equatio. I still don't know how to say it. Anyway, so you'll notice at the end of my address bar here, you see the little Equatio symbol there. It's kind of the blue diamond. If you're not familiar with the new version of Chrome, all your extensions now hide under the little puzzle piece. If you want to make sure it stays there, just click on the little pin button so it stays there. You'll find it in the list in there somewhere, and you can pin it there so it stays there at the top. So it's a relatively new thing for as far as Chrome goes, but it'll be there for you. Now, the extension works depending on what you have going on your screen. So if you are in, for example, I'll just go into a new Google Doc. I'll use my little shortcut there, docs.new. You can use that to get into a brand new Google Doc or a new Google form or whatever. And if you are opening up Equatio, once this loads up for me, we can just click on the extension, and then we're going to see the toolbar pop up at the bottom momentarily. There he goes. And there it is. And this will have all of our tools and everything from here. And again, it depends what page that you're on is when this toolbar will come up. So it won't necessarily always come up. You have to be either in some sort of G Suite app, or you have to have like Word open or something like that. If you're just like in like, some random page, it may not work. All right. But today's focus, of course, is we're really trying to focus in on Google Forms to make quizzes. So let's go ahead and make a brand new Google form here. Now, with the premium version of Equatio, you will notice you start to see these little blue icons show up in places where you can type in text. And if you try to click on the extension button, it's just going to say, hey, you're already in Google Forms. There's nothing you have to click the extension for. All right. But you still have to have the extension installed, to be clear. But you don't have to click on it when you're in a Google form, if that makes sense. All right, so let's say we want to go ahead and start using Equatio here. So if you don't see these little symbols come up in your Google form, that either means you don't have the extension installed, or it's not recognizing you as having the premium version yet, because this is a premium feature to have Equatio in Google Forms. But once you do have that show up there, that'll be there for you. If you're not sure if you're designated as the premium version or not, just open up the toolbar. You can just do this from a Google Doc or anything. Go into under the Equatio button down at the bottom left, and then I think it's under options, I believe. Yeah, options, and see where your premium membership lies. so you can tell if you have premium or not. All right, so that's how we can open it up. Next thing is, let's just say we have a a worksheet that we've been using forever, and maybe something like this here. I'll just pull this up here. So we just have a worksheet that we normally give out. Some of the, maybe we're doing logarithms or something. And normally, of course, we have printed out and handed out to students, and then we have a giant stack of papers we have to grade, right? And this worksheet's totally fine; it's nice and good, but maybe we want to translate it over into a Google Doc. And so the cool thing that we can do is we can kind of combine what we have going on in Equatio and kind of translate this over into a Google form. And one of the cool tools that we can use for that is this one, the second one from the end, called Screenshot Reader. So this one, this is where it gets a little bit confusing. We need to be on the page where we're going to be taking a screenshot, meaning notice when I flip over to this like worksheet, the toolbar is gone. The Equatio toolbar is now gone. So if I go back up to the extension and click on it again, I can still run it on this page. It looks a little bit different because I have a PDF open, so some things are a little, kind of have to know the ins and outs a little bit. But it can open on top of pictures, it can open on top of PDFs. And let's say, for example, I'm going to use my little screenshot reader here, and I just want to basically take, maybe some of these questions that I have on this worksheet and put them onto this Google form, just so it can auto grade for me. So what I can do is I open up my screenshot reader. Notice my mouse changes to like a little crosshair, and I can just take a little screenshot here. And it's going to catch what it'll read it for you. And then what we can do is go into these little three dots right here, and we're going to copy Latex. If you guys, do you guys know what Latex is? Have you heard of that before? It's like the math coding language. It's how people originally wrote all the symbols and things like that for equations and formulas. And so if we want to bring that over into here, if I just try to like paste it in, it's going to do this. That's what Latex looks like, kind of by itself. So what we need to do is over here in the Google form, we're going to go down to this Latex button here. We're going to paste that Latex code in there. And now we can see on the right-hand side, hey, now we have our actual activity all done. And we'll click on Insert Math down in the bottom right. And basically all it does is it takes a picture of that formula and drops it right in here for me. Okay. And then so I can ask whatever question I like. I can change, this question into a multiple choice, and then, ask students to solve it, or I can leave it as a short answer, but I have to, simplify it or whatever I'm doing. Okay. All right. So let's continue looking at Equatio here. And the cool thing about it as well is when you click on, as long as you're in the same page and you close out of Equatio, when you come back in again, all that stuff is basically still there for you, going from page to page, which is pretty cool. All right, so let's kind of just run across the bottom here, kind of just looking at these buttons here. So the first one here, this one's just your standard typing. So this is really no different than typing in, Word or a Google Doc or whatever it is. The nice thing is you'll have this little symbols button here, the little three dots, and then you can put in all your different symbols that you'd like, and you can even do a search as well. Okay, so if you need to do a special formula or use special characters, you can also change the layouts and get your superscripts, and you can do all these things on here. And there's obviously a big list. You see how far I scroll down. You can make long division or whatever you need. Okay, you can also favorite these things as well. So if you end up doing a lot of long division, you hit that little favorite little heart button. That'll be saved there in your favorites, so you can keep using it over and over again. And then, of course, under formulas, you have all the pre-built formulas there. So, difference, quotient, force, all the volume and area formulas. There's a ton in here. Obviously, again, this is a gigantic list, so you don't have to type out these things over and over again or find them and copy paste a million times. Again, you can just find them. If you end up using the slope formula a lot, you can do that as well. Okay, so we already looked at LaTeX. Again, if you know how to write in LaTex, maybe that's good for you, but it's really helpful when you use that screenshot tool. All right, so now let's look at the graph editor here. And so in here is, of course, where you can write a formula, and then it will plot it on the graph. So if we just kind of do like a simple slope formula, oops, plus 2. There you go. And you can just do a simple slope formula in there. If you go into the little settings button there, you can change your color of your line or make it dashed or whatever you want from there. Okay. And you can even break it down into a table as well. And that will basically set every like little data point on the graph as well. And you're able to change these numbers if you like as well. All right. And then again, once you're all set with that, you can just click on insert. In this case, it's an insert graph, but we can save that there. And I'll drop that in there for me. This one I dropped in as one of the options in a multiple choice. Again, it really doesn't make sense with the question I'm asking, but maybe if I did it like this here, I'll do, which graph has a slope of y equals 2x plus 2. All right, and then you can make your multiple graphs, and it's just a simple text question, but then each option is a picture of a graph. Okay. Again, if we pull this up again, go into the graph editor. Again, this information is still here, so you can add on more if you like. So you can add more lines to the same graph. So if we did another one, y equals 3x plus 2. Okay. And then of course you can change this stuff and keep adding more and more as much as you like. All right, and then let's go over to the handwriting recognition. So this one's pretty cool. So of course, if you can't find the things that you're looking for already, if it's tough to type or whatever it is, you can actually write stuff in here. It's of course kind of tricky to do with a mouse, but it still works fairly well. You can get the companion mobile app as well, so that might be a little bit easier to write things if you end up doing a lot of writing. Like if you have a stylus, then you can do the handwriting from there as well. But then if we do, maybe if we're doing some fractions, for example. Times 2/3 times 3/4. There we go. And then I'll drop that right in there. All right. And of course, it dropped it kind of in a bad place here. I'll drop it into its own question. That'll make a little bit more sense. There we go. And there we are. And we can make it a little bit bigger. Stretch it out if we need to. You'll notice it'll be kind of fuzzy if you try to make it too big. So what we can also do, we'll talk about in just a second, is how to make bigger equations like this a little bit more clear so that they're not fuzzy like this. So we'll talk more about that in just a second. But you can also center these pictures as well. So if you want to center them or align them in a different way, you can do that. Again, these pictures, it really just drops these, whatever you make with Equatio as a picture right into the form. Okay. All right, so that was our handwriting. Now, I think one of the coolest things, honestly, is the speech recognition one. I think this one's really, really cool. So here, let's do, yeah, maybe I'll do this log one here. Or maybe, yeah, why not? So you can actually just basically dictate and say whatever formula or equation that you want. So if I do parenthesis, numerator 6, denominator 5, close parenthesis, to the power of 3. Oh, yeah, I goofed on that one. Hang on a second. Open parenthesis. And that's supposed to be down there. Yeah, let me redo that one. I said it wrong. One thing I've noticed as playing with this stuff, you kind of have to fiddle with it to say it exactly right, especially for parentheses and like fractions. Open parenthesis, numerator, 6, denominator, 5, close parenthesis, to the power of 3. Oh, it's not liking that one. Oh, you know what? Because I didn't say log. That's why. Bad example. Log of open parenthesis 6 times 3 close parenthesis. Right. So you can really say pretty much whatever you want in there. Of course, I was not a math teacher. I was a social studies teacher, but these you can pretty much say whatever you want and put them into you can just dictate things that you're saying from a worksheet or pretty much whatever that you want. All right. Again, if you want to do the mobile app, again, you can pretty much do a lot of the same stuff. Particularly, it's useful for like the handwriting and the speech input. So there's this companion app, so you can do the same thing from your phone and then drop stuff in that way. All right, so now let's look at the math space. So that was this little like square inside of cube button there. And that actually opens it up over in a new tab. And what this does is it gives you a full, basically a huge empty space to drop in whatever you like. And so from in here, this is one way that you can drop in some math formulas or pictures that aren't going to be fuzzy like this one if you want to make them bigger. So I'll just do the same fraction here, the same fraction over here in math space. 2/3 times 3/4. There we go. Insert math. And now it does not drop it over into the Google form when you click on insert math. It drops it into this big empty space here. And the cool thing about when you drop these things in here, they are like scalable pictures, meaning they don't lose any quality in their image when you make them bigger. So they're fully scalable. And so now it's nice and big here now. And now if I go up to the very top right and click on this insert button, I'm going to drop that into there. There we go. And so now it's huge, obviously, but it's a lot, even though it's way bigger than this original one, it's a lot more clear. So, I mean, if you have like a longer formula, or if you have a bigger problem, or if you just need to make a bigger one that's easier for kids to see, because obviously this is a lot better looking than this one up here. All right, hopefully that's making sense. All right, let's continue talking about math space. Let me go back in here again. And so the nice thing about this space is not only can you make like really big, like higher quality images, this is also where you can drop in a whole bunch of other stuff as well. So you still have all the same buttons like we saw earlier. So you have your regular editor, you can write in Latex, do your graphs. If you need to make a graph and it's too small and it's not like fitting well, or if it doesn't look very good, you know, on the form, if it's too fuzzy, you need to make it bigger. Again, you do the same thing here, make a graph. And I'll just do the same thing I did earlier. Drop that in. And we'll just make it as big as the screen can make it. And again, drop that into our form here. There we go. And again, it's a lot clearer. You're gonna have a lot bigger of an image here, and you can even still make it a little bit bigger in here if you need to. So especially if you're doing something like with a graph, here's what it'll look like. Let's do a little preview here. So you can see how like small and fuzzy this original one is, how fuzzy this one is. But then you get to this graph that we just dropped in here. It's a lot bigger, a lot clearer. Same thing for this little fraction multiplication. All right, let's jump in math space again here. All right, so of course it has all the same tools that we saw just on the regular toolbar as we saw over in Forms, but you also have the ability to do some freehand drawing. You can also drop in lots of different shapes in here as well. You can even go under more shapes, and there's a lot more. There's even like coins that are built in here. So if you are teaching younger kids for like currency stuff, there's tanagrams in here. There's spheres, so you have 3D models. You have lots of distributions in here. It's a huge list, so you can really just search for pretty much whatever you want in here, and there is a lot of stuff in here for you guys to find. All right, there's fraction circles, all this stuff. If you go under smart shapes, the one next to it, this is where you can get like a number line. You can get a number line pretty easily there. You can also get a grid. And you can change up how many, this little toolbar over on the right-hand side here lets you split up however many grids you need. Okay. And there's also a protractor in here, which is always handy. So again, this will be dropped in to the form right as a picture. And again, the math space still works over in Google Docs, works the same way if you do Word. All right. And there's also a scientific calculator built in here under this little beaker. And so there's that calculator already in there as well. All right, and you can combine multiple things together. So if you're, for example, teaching students about protractors here, make it nice and big so it's nice and clear. And maybe we want an arrow. You can drop in an arrow here, twist it around, and maybe we're saying, okay, if a triangle has an incline of 30 degrees, is that considered obtuse or acute, right? So you can have that little picture in there. It takes 30 seconds to make. And again, we can just go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. You have a question. So I'm trying to play along on my computer as you're doing this. So how, when you make the picture in the math space, how do you get it in? How do you inserting it into the Google form?
Good question. Here, let me get this here. So wherever you start in the form, so like for example, I have of course I have my little blue button here in the form. That's where it's going to ultimately drop it, and of course that brings the toolbar up at the bottom of the screen. Then we open up Math Space, and that'll open it up in a new tab for me. As that opens up here, and let's just go ahead and I'll just draw that little protractor again as an example. Then once we have the picture that we want, then we go up to the very, very top right, and it's this little button here. It looks like almost looks like a little camera with like an arrow on it. It's a little blue button way up in the top right corner. If you hover over it, it says Insert. And then we click on that, don't touch anything, it'll load everything up for me. And wherever you initially started, wherever you click that first little Equatio button in Forms, that's where it's going to drop it.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay. A couple other things about Math Space. Let me jump back in. You notice you kind of have to jump back in over and over again with Math Space. As soon as you import a picture over, it does take it away from you. If you want to save a picture that you have in here, so for example, I'll do the protractor again. So if, for example, you know, I have my protractor and I have my arrow. And I don't want to lose it. I do want to use it in my form, but I also want to save this picture for later. I can go down under the Equatio button down in the bottom left, and then we can do download as PNG. So they'll save this as a picture file that we can go use for later. So then we can just store it wherever we're saving pictures. And here it is. So there it is. I still have access to it. Okay. Notice they kind of cut off the arrow there. So do be careful when you are making things bigger in the math space, that if they're not on the screen as you see them, it's not going to be included. So I should have made my arrow a little bit smaller there, but there you go. Okay, so you can still be left with a nice, pretty high quality picture there. All right. And again, as soon as you click that import, or the insert button rather, it'll take it over to your form, or it's the same process if you're doing this over in like a Google Doc or in Google Slides. It's the same process, but as soon as you do that, you'll lose it from here in math space. So if you want to keep it, save it as a PNG. All right, up across the top again, you can delete everything on here. You can also copy things from here. So if you want to copy it over to a different, if you want to copy like an element, for example, so I can copy that arrow and paste the arrow again, so that I can have another one. You can still just use the keyboard shortcuts for that sort of stuff too. You can also import pictures. So if I didn't have all this stuff here, and again, if I want to just keep using that, you know, my protractor picture over and over again, I can just drop that thing in here. Let me go find that real quick. And there it is. There's my Equatio PNG. And there we go. There's my picture. Okay. So it's still there for you. All right. So all those buttons are going to be there for you. You can change the color of like the shapes that you drop in. So if you want them to be a different color or a different outline color, you can do those things as well. All right. So let me close out of that tab there. And let's jump back here. All right, so we looked at opening Equatio. We looked at kind of translating a form, an old worksheet over into Google Forms. So again, you can open up PDFs from in your browser and still use Equatio with it. So let me just kind of make a point on that though. The nice thing about that screenshot tool is, of course, you don't have to retype anything, but you have to open up something in the browser. So if you have like PDFs open in like Adobe or something like that on your computer, not in the browser, you can just drag a PDF over right on top of your browser. Then you can use the extension. All right. Same goes for pictures. Same goes if you have like PowerPoints or Word files, and if you don't want to use the add-in for Microsoft Word, do the same. You can do the same thing. You just store them in your Google Drive. If you convert them over to their Google counterparts, if you open them up from Drive, even though if they're originally PowerPoints or originally Word docs, then of course you can open up Equatio from there, and then you can keep on going. All right. All right. So let's kind of clean this up here, and let's kind of put something together here. All right. So let me kind of clean up some of this stuff in here. All right. So we'll just have a nice little quiz. A little 2-question quiz. And let's shrink this down a little bit so I can see it easier. And if I'm not using Equatio, I can just close out of it. Going down to the bottom left and just click close Equatio. That'll close the little toolbar if I don't need it. And then I can just obviously put in my questions, because honestly from here, it's really just doing a Google form like normal. So I'll say, which formula would make this line. So then we'll have our y equals 2x plus 2. Okay. I'll just make it a little 2-choice one. And then, of course, from here, let's do one more here. We'll just do I'll do our little picture of our protractor here. And we can say, all right. And we could even maybe do a picture like for each one. So we could do, we could draw a triangle on top of the protractor to make it different, different degrees and things like that. All right. I'll just kind of put 90, 80. Okay. And like I said, from there, it's pretty much just building out your form like normal. Now, before we go further into that, if you want your students to write with Equatio, students can get the extension for themselves. I mean, double check what your school's policy is on that. I don't want to speak for them. Some schools allow students to download their own extensions. Some schools block them and only allow them to download certain ones. It's the same thing. Students would have a free premium trial for a month, then they would revert back to the free version. All right. This page here listed on, linked on slide 7, lists the differences for you. You kind of have to scroll down a little bit here, but you do lose out on some good stuff for when you're not on the premium version. But again, as a teacher, you can get it for free. It's probably not as big of a deal in probably most cases for students to have the premium version. But here, you just scroll down a little bit to see this part here. But these are all the differences here between the free and the premium version. And again, you can look at the difference between what you get in Chrome and Windows and Mac and all that good stuff. Okay. So again, if you want students to do that, they'll have a month of premium for themselves, but after that, they'll go back and they'll lose, they'll only have the things in the red column, basically. All right, big things that you would probably notice right away. This is the difference between the premium and not premium version. So you lose out on math space, you lose out on the screenshot reader and those other science tools, particularly like the scientific calculator. You have the other things that are in the original toolbar, but that's kind of it. And you also do not have the Google Forms integration when you don't have the premium version. All right, so just kind of be aware of that. If you want your students to be the ones typing out things in Equatio. All right, so again, like I said, so with your form filled out, then it's pretty much time to make it into a quiz. So like we saw earlier, there's our very simple, just 2-question quiz, and then it's time to make it a quiz just like normal. If you are pretty familiar with forms already, you probably already know how to do that. If you need to learn more about Google Forms, here on slide number 9 is a link to a video webinar I did a while ago, all about all things that you need to know for Google Forms. So you can check that out if you'd like. But basically, all you have to do from here is put in your, set it to be a quiz rather. And then we just select all of our right answers, do any of our other changes that we need to do if we're turning on locked mode or whatever else we're doing. Then, of course, we just kind of make our quiz. Oop. And we will do our answer key. There's our right answer. And answer key for this one. And cute. And of course, if a student goes in and does this lesson here, so I'm going to go ahead and copy this link over. So of course, when you send out Google Form, goes out to everybody that you can send it to. Of course, you can put it through Google Classroom, or you can send out the link if you're familiar with all that stuff. Let me go to an account that does not have, I don't think this one, yeah, this account does not have Equatio on it at all. And this is what they'll see. And as you notice, it looks just like a regular Google form, but they have the pictures in here from Equatio, even though they don't have the extension. They don't need to have it because, again, Equatio just basically makes screenshots of these different math things that you do, and then it drops it right into the form. Okay, and so again, if a student, if you want students to be able to write their own, like I said, there's a couple of caveats to that. All right. So from the student's perspective, not a whole lot changes. Again, they do not have to have Equatio themselves, only if you want them to write formulas, symbols, etc. That's the only case where students would have to have Equatio. All right. Other than that, the students won't tell a difference. If you're putting the quiz through Google Forms, it's going to look just like any other Google form to them. They'll probably have more pictures than they would normally see, but that's pretty much it. All right. All right. So that kind of covers our agenda for today. So we looked at getting Equatio, getting the free version of it, setting up how it works in Google Forms, rather. Got to see a little bit in action, setting up, dropping in pictures, putting in lots of different formulas, using that screenshot tool to take screenshots of items from other pages. And we went to math space and all that good stuff. And that's pretty much what there is to it. It's actually a relatively simple tool to use. It's just very flexible. So you have lots of different ways to use it. It's actually a good thing for like science teachers, particularly like for chemistry or physics as well. And we took a quick peek at the student's perspective, but wasn't much of a difference, honestly, for them. They're not going to see a whole big change on their end. All right, but that will pretty much do it as far as our agenda here. Of course, you're welcome to stay in here if you want to kind of poke around a little bit, and if you want to kind of play around, and if you have any questions, of course, I'll hang out in here in the Zoom room with you. Other than that, if you have any other questions, always feel free to shoot me an email. Again, if you are here live with us and you didn't sign in yet, please go ahead and sign in. The link is also on the last slide here, slide 12. And then, excuse me, if you are here, if you watch this video, or if you're here live with us, there's also a quick survey. But that will pretty much bring it down to the end. So I'm going to stop the recording. But again, I'll still hang out in the room here if you have any other questions.